After the final war of the Roman Republic, public faith in Rome was severely lacking, so Augustus Caesar asked the epic poet Virgil to write the Aeneid, a Homer fanfiction where Aeneas, a bad guy from the Iliad, leads the defeated Trojans to Italy where they become the ancestors to the then modern-day Romans. The story was incredibly popular in its time because it presented a mythologized version of Roman history, real enough for the Roman people to see themselves in, yet uncritical enough for them to feel flattered by. We see this idea of a self-gratifying mythologized past pop up all throughout the world. In Japan, Jidaigeki films present a fairy tale version of the Tokugawa era, and despite being largely fictional, King Arthur stands as one of the most famous British royals. In America, we have one very prevalent mythologized historical hero. The myth of the cowboy was influenced by dime store novels, traveling shows like that of Buffalo Bill Cody, tall tales of semi-historic figures like Paul Bunyan or Davy Crockett, and political rhetoric like Manifest Destiny. By the early 20th century, the frontier represented a recently nostalgic pre-technological past, so with the advent of movies, westerns quickly rose to prominence as one of the most popular genres. These films often featured a strong focus on their rugged, square-jawed protagonists, cementing the cowboy as a key figure in American pop culture. The genre tells myths that valorize the power and sanctity of the individual, usually the white straight male individual. This is typically read as a sort of conservative fantasy, the cowboy in many ways recalling the agrarian and pastoral vision of America that Thomas Jefferson had, and the Western being a popular figure of American conservative political rhetoric. Cowboys are often also read as allegorical for imperialist American foreign policy, given that the Western's emphasis on man versus nature recalls very plainly an imperialist urge to impose order over what are perceived to be chaotic other lands. This is all pretty standard Film School 101 stuff, but there's another mythologized figure in American history who's been there since before the beginning.
Aloft! There's no change to hold you now! Break out those sails and watch them fill with the wind that's carrying us all to freedom!
Usually taking place in the Caribbean basin around the 17th or 18th centuries, pirate movies offer a rare look at a pre-revolutionary America and a very different type of American mythological hero. The myth of the pirate was influenced by books like Treasure Island and Peter Pan, operas like The Pirates of Penzance, highly exaggerated historical accounts, as well as many pirate stories that made its way into early days of film, notably played by actors like Errol Flynn. The character Flynn and others were developing were characterized by their wit and charisma, kind of a sexy version of the wily Bugs Bunny-esque trickster. This new hero was many things: daring, cunning, fearless, and notably anti-authoritarian. While the cowboy has to assert themselves over their environment, the pirate generally has to escape persecutions from a society that's against them. In Captain Blood, Errol Flynn's titular, Captain Blood, only becomes a pirate after escaping from being wrongfully enslaved and shipped to the West Indies. His main adversary is his former slave master, Colonel Bishop, a foppish, rich British aristocrat. We see a similar pirates versus the government struggle play out through Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean movies. While cowboys often tend to be sheriffs with explicit political authority, the bad guys in pirate movies tend to be the government itself.
I am the monarch of the sea, the ruler of the Queen's Navy, whose praise Great Britain will loudly chant.
Like westerns, pirate movies tend to valorize individual power and freedom, but while cowboys represent the power to impose one's will on their environment, pirates represent the freedom to escape persecution. Now, let's not be coy about this. The thing pirates were being persecuted for was crimes. Usually some type of robbery, rape, pillaging, murder, or worse. Though pirates are primarily characterized by the fact that they commit crimes at sea, pirate movies tend to focus less on the crime and more on lighthearted adventuring, treasure hunting, justified crime, or simple inter-pirate conflicts. Though there's certainly a transgressive element of the pirate as a hero that gives him an undeniable bad boy edge. So if the pirate is the American myth, like Aeneas for the Romans, what are we trying to say about America? Given that these movies often boil down to pirates, usually with Americanish accents, fighting British colonizers, these movies could be read as allegorical for the American Revolution, or at very least reminiscent of America's perceived revolutionariness. We like to think of ourselves as a pretty rock and roll country, so it checks out that we'd make 18th century rock stars our heroes. And given that they often represent the freedom to escape persecution, pirates have a certain appeal for people who are marginalized themselves, as a lot of Americans are. Like pirates, a lot of Americans are persecuted in some form or another by their own society, and seeing someone fight against their own persecution on screen just feels really good. I don't mean to imply that pirates are a more woke hero than the cowboy or anything. These movies are kind of valorizing people defined historically by raping and pillaging, so that's obviously not great. And while women pirates both existed in real life and on screen, on the whole, movie pirates tend to be pretty chauvinistic and often regard women as part of the property they steal.
What matters is that now I own you as you once owned me. You're mine, do you understand? Mine to do with as I please.
Also, like with westerns, pirate movies often dance around the fine line between individualism and being a selfish asshole as the thing they're valorizing. And for being all about persecution, pirate films generally don't actually address issues of class or race or anything that leads to real-world persecution in any meaningful way. Notice all the very, very white slaves from Captain Blood. Instead, they generally reduce it to a kind of swashbuckling hero good, foppish British bad guy bad. But I do mean to say that pirates are the underdogs of American mythology, the scrappy heroes from our own past that we like to see stick it to the man. And I think that there's a reason that, despite going the way of the Western literally being a common phrase meaning that something's no longer around, pirate media still seems to be going as strong as ever.